Welcome to the channel Error Coins Hub. What if I told you that a simple penny from 1975 could be worth more than most people will earn in their entire lifetime? What if that coin sitting in an old piggy bank or lost under your couch cushions could sell for a staggering $7 million? And what if the very thing you've been walking past, ignoring, or even throwing away could change your financial future forever? Most people see pennies as worthless, barely worth the effort to pick up off the ground. But the 1975 D1 cent is not just any penny. It's a coin that has turned ordinary people into millionaires. A coin that has made collectors around the world go absolutely wild with excitement. And today, you're going to discover exactly why this unassuming piece of copper could be your ticket to unimaginable wealth. Now, before we dive deep into the incredible story of this 1975 D penny, I need you to stick around until the very end of this video because after we uncover all the secrets of this $7 million coin, I'm going to reveal another penny that's worth over $1 million. A coin that could be hiding in your collection right now, and trust me, you won't believe the error that makes it so valuable. So don't go anywhere because the surprises just keep getting better. The 1975 D1 cent, minted in Denver as indicated by that small D mint mark beneath the date, represents one of the most extraordinary examples of how a simple minting error can transform an everyday coin into a legendary treasure. Let me take you back to 1975. A year when America was still recovering from the economic turbulence of the early 70s, when inflation was a major concern, when people were holding on to their money more carefully than ever before, and when the Denver Mint was churning out hundreds of millions of pennies to meet the nation's demand for circulating currency. The penny itself, featuring Abraham Lincoln's profile on the obverse and the Lincoln Memorial on the reverse, was designed to be ordinary, functional, and mass-produced. But something extraordinary happened during the minting process that year, something that would create a coin so rare and so valuable that it would eventually sell for $7 million at auction. You see, the 1975 D penny that's worth this astronomical sum isn't just any regular penny from that year. It's a coin that features a dramatic minting error, an error so significant that it fundamentally changed the coin's appearance, rarity, and collectability. The specific error we're talking about is what numismatists call a wrong planchet error, where a coin is struck on a planchet intended for a completely different denomination, and in this case, the 1975 D penny was mistakenly struck on a dime planchet. Imagine the chaos at the Denver Mint when somehow, someway, a copper-plated zinc planchet meant to become a penny went through the minting process alongside planchets intended for dimes. And through an incredible series of mishaps, the penny dies came down and struck this wrong-sized, wrong-composition planchet, creating a coin that was simultaneously a penny and not a penny. This 1975 D1 cent struck on a dime planchet weighs differently than a normal penny. It has a different diameter, it has a different metallic composition, and it has visual characteristics that immediately set it apart from every other penny minted that year. But here's the thing. Most people wouldn't even notice unless they were looking very carefully. The coin still shows Lincoln's profile, it still shows the date 1975 and the D mint mark, it still shows the Lincoln Memorial on the reverse, but everything about it is just slightly OFF in a way that screams rarity to anyone who knows what they're looking for. When this coin first surfaced in the numismatic community, collectors couldn't believe their eyes. Experts were called in to authenticate it. And once it was confirmed to be genuine, the bidding wars began. The first time this 1975 D penny appeared at auction, it sold for hundreds of thousands of dollars. But as word spread about its existence, as more collectors learned about this incredible error, and as the coin changed hands over the years, its value skyrocketed into the millions. By the time it reached its peak auction price of $7 million, it had become one of the most expensive pennies ever sold in the history of numismatics, and it had cemented its place in coin collecting legend forever. Now, you might be wondering, how does a coin like this even make it out of the mint? How does such an obvious error slip past quality control? And how does it end up in circulation where regular people could potentially find it? The answer lies in understanding the sheer volume of coins produced at U.S. mints every single year. We're talking about billions of coins, and even with modern technology and careful oversight, mistakes happen, errors slip through, and when they do, they create opportunities for collectors and lucky finders to strike it rich. The 1975 penny struck on a dime planchet likely went unnoticed at the mint because it was mixed in with millions of other coins, because the visual difference might not have been immediately apparent to someone not specifically looking for errors, and because the coin still looked close enough to a normal penny that it passed inspection and made its way into circulation. Once in circulation, this coin could have been spent anywhere. It could have been given as change at a grocery store. It could have been dropped into a vending machine. It could have been saved in a jar of pennies by someone who had no idea what they had. And it could have remained hidden for years or even decades before someone finally recognized its true value. This is exactly why coin collectors always emphasize the importance of checking your change, examining your old coin collections, and paying attention to anything that looks even slightly unusual, because you never know when you might stumble upon a $7 million treasure hiding in plain sight. The history of the 1975 penny is also fascinating when you consider the broader context of American coinage during that era. In 1975, the U.S. Mint was still using predominantly copper planchets for pennies, though changes were on the horizon that would eventually transition to copper-plated zinc. The Mint was dealing with rising metal costs, concerns about coin shortages, and the ongoing challenge of producing enough currency to meet national demand, and all of these factors contributed to an environment where errors were perhaps more likely to occur than they might be today. The Denver Mint, in particular, was a high-output facility responsible for producing a substantial portion of the nation's circulating coinage, and with great output comes great opportunity for rare mistakes. What makes the 1975 penny struck on a dime planchet even more special is that it's believed to be either unique or one of only a handful of examples in existence. This isn't an error that happened frequently. This isn't something you'll find in every collection, and this rarity is precisely what drives the value into the stratosphere. Collectors of error coins are always searching for the next great discovery. They're always hoping to find that one coin that nobody else has. And when a coin like the 1975 penny on a dime planchet appears, it becomes the holy grail of their collecting passion. Now, I want you to pause for a moment and really think about what this means for you. If you have any pennies from 1975, especially those with a D-mint mark, you owe it to yourself to examine them carefully, to compare their weight and size to normal pennies, to look for any irregularities in their appearance, and to consider having them professionally authenticated if you spot anything unusual, because while the odds of finding the $7 million coin are incredibly slim, there's always a chance that you might have a similar error or a different valuable variety that could still be worth thousands or even hundreds of thousands of dollars. The world of error coins is full of surprises, and the 1975 penny is just one example of how manufacturing mistakes can create collector gold. Beyond the wrong planchet error, the 1975 penny series also includes other collectible varieties and errors worth knowing about. There are double die errors where the design elements appear doubled due to die misalignment. There are repunched mint mark errors where the D-mint mark was stamped multiple times. There are off-center strikes where the design is shifted dramatically to one side, and there are countless minor varieties that, while not worth millions, can still command premiums of anywhere from a few dollars to several $1,000s depending on their severity and rarity. The key to identifying these errors is education, patience, and a good eye for detail. You need to know what a normal 1975 penny looks like. You need to understand what kinds of errors are possible, and you need to be willing to examine your coins carefully, preferably with magnification, good lighting, and a scale to check for weight discrepancies. Many collectors who found valuable error coins report that they almost missed them, that they were just about to spend the coin or throw it in a jar when something made them take a second look, and that moment of curiosity changed their lives. The auction history of the 1975 D penny struck on a dime planchet reads like a thriller novel. The coin was first authenticated by major grading services like PCGS or NGC, organizations that specialize in certifying the authenticity and condition of rare coins, and once certified, it entered the public marketplace where collectors with deep pockets began competing for ownership. Early auctions saw prices climbing rapidly as word spread through the numismatic community. Specialist dealers began advertising the coin to their wealthiest clients, and eventually, the coin landed in the hands of an elite collector willing to pay $7 million for the privilege of owning this unique piece of American minting history. What's remarkable is that this isn't just a theoretical value. This isn't just an estimate or a fantasy number. Someone actually paid $7 million for this coin, making it one of the most expensive pennies ever sold and proving that the market for rare error coins is alive, thriving, and willing to invest massive sums in the right pieces. For the average person, the story of the 1975 D penny offers both inspiration and a practical lesson. Inspiration because it shows that extraordinary wealth can be found in the most ordinary places, and a practical lesson because it demonstrates the importance of paying attention to details and never underestimating the potential value of something just because it seems common or insignificant. If you're serious about coin collecting or coin hunting, you'll want to start by sorting through any pennies you have from the 1970s, paying special attention to those from 1975 with a D mint mark, and examining each one for unusual weight, size, or appearance characteristics that might indicate an error. You'll want to invest in a good digital scale capable of measuring to the tenth of a gram, because weight is one of the easiest ways to identify wrong planchet errors. A normal 1975 D penny should weigh approximately 3.11 grams, but a penny struck on a dime planchet would weigh significantly less, around 2.27 to 2.5 grams, depending on whether it's a copper-nickel clad dime planchet or another type, and this weight difference is a red flag that you might have something special. You'll also want to measure the diameter of your coins, because a penny struck on a dime planchet would be smaller than a normal penny, typically around 17.91 millimeters instead of the standard 19.05 millimeters, and this size difference, while small, is noticeable when you compare coins side by side. The visual examination is equally important. Look at the edges of the coin to see if the design appears compressed, or if there's excess blank planchet visible around the rim. Examine the overall strike quality to see if details appear mushy or incomplete, and check for any unusual coloration or surface characteristics that might indicate a different metal composition. If you find a coin that meets any of these criteria, do not clean it, do not attempt to polish it or alter its appearance in any way, because cleaning can destroy the value of a rare coin, and instead, place it in a protective holder, avoid handling it directly with your fingers, and contact a reputable coin dealer or grading service to have it authenticated. The excitement of potentially finding a valuable error coin is something every collector dreams about, and while not everyone will find a $7 million penny, the thrill of the hunt and the possibility of discovery makes coin collecting an endlessly fascinating hobby. Now, remember, the 1975 D penny isn't the only incredible coin we're talking about today, and I promised you that there's another penny coming up that's worth over $1 million. A coin from 1982 with an error so fascinating that collectors have been searching for it obsessively for decades. So stay tuned because you absolutely will not want to miss what's coming next. The legacy of the 1975 D 1 cent struck on a dime planchet extends beyond just its monetary value. It represents a moment in minting history, a testament to human error and mechanical imperfection, and a reminder that even in our modern, technologically advanced world, mistakes happen, and sometimes those mistakes become treasures. This coin has been featured in numismatic publications, discussed in coin collecting forums, displayed at major coin shows, and studied by experts trying to understand exactly how such an error could occur and whether other examples might exist undiscovered in collections around the world. The possibility that another example might surface someday keeps collectors on their toes, constantly checking their coins, always hoping that they'll be the next person to make a $7 million discovery. For those wondering whether coins like this are realistic investments or just collector curiosities, the answer is both. Rare error coins have proven to be excellent investments over time, with values generally appreciating as the pool of collectors grows and the number of available specimens remains fixed or even shrinks as coins are lost, damaged, or permanently removed from the market by institutions and museums. The 1975 penny struck on a dime planchet has shown remarkable value growth over the decades since its discovery, and there's every reason to believe that its value will continue to climb as long as there are collectors passionate about owning unique and historically significant pieces of American numismatic history. The story also serves as a reminder to check not just your 1975 pennies, but all of your coins from every year, because errors can and do occur across all denominations and all time periods, and while a $7 million find is exceptionally rare, there are thousands of error coins worth hundreds or thousands of dollars just waiting to be discovered in old collections, inherited coin jars, and everyday pocket change. The 1975 penny has inspired countless people to start examining their coins more carefully, to learn about minting processes and error types, and to join the vibrant community of coin collectors who share information, celebrate discoveries, and help each other identify and authenticate rare finds. Whether you're a seasoned numismatist with decades of experience or a complete beginner just starting to explore the world of coin collecting, the story of the 1975 1 cent worth $7 million should excite you, motivate you, and remind you that fortune favors the observant, the curious, and those willing to look beyond the surface of ordinary objects to discover extraordinary value. So go ahead, dig out those old penny jars, sort through your loose change, check your grandparents' coin collections, and examine every 1975 penny you can find, because while the odds are long, the potential reward is life-changing, and you just might be the next person to discover $1 million or even $7 million treasure hiding in plain sight. But don't go anywhere yet, because up next, we're diving into that 1982 penny I mentioned, the one worth $1.5 million. And trust me, the error that makes it so valuable is something you absolutely need to know about, so keep watching. Last, 1982 1 cent worth $1.5 million. Imagine holding a penny in your hand and realizing that this single coin, this piece of metal that you almost spent on a pack of gum, is actually worth enough money to buy a house, a car, and change your entire financial situation forever. And what if I told you that the 1982 1 cent could be exactly that coin? A penny worth an absolutely staggering $1.5 million, making it one of the most valuable pennies in existence and a coin that collectors would do almost anything to own? The year 1982 was absolutely crucial in the history of American pennies because it marked a major transition in how these coins were manufactured. A change that created unique opportunities for errors, varieties, and collectible pieces that have driven numismatists absolutely crazy for decades. You see, 1982 was the year when the U.S. Mint transitioned from making pennies primarily out of copper to making them out of copper-plated zinc. A change driven by rising copper prices that made it economically impractical to continue producing pennies from 95% copper, as they had been doing since 1864. And this transition didn't happen all at once on January 1st. Instead, it happened gradually throughout the year, with some pennies being struck in the old copper composition and others being struck in the new zinc composition, and this overlap created a perfect storm for rare varieties and valuable errors. The 1982 1 cent worth $1.5 million represents the absolute pinnacle of what can happen when minting errors, compositional varieties, and collector demand all converge on a single coin, and understanding this coin requires us to dive deep into the fascinating complexity of 1982 penny production. Let me paint you a picture of what was happening at the U.S. mints in 1982. Both the Philadelphia Mint and the Denver Mint were producing pennies. They were dealing with the changeover from copper to zinc composition. They were using different die varieties throughout the year, and they were producing pennies with both large date and small date design variations, which means that there are actually 7 different major varieties of 1982 pennies when you account for all the combinations of mint mark, composition, and date size. You could have a 1982 Philadelphia copper large date, a 1982 Philadelphia copper small date, a 1982 Philadelphia zinc large date, a 1982 Philadelphia zinc small date, a 1982 D Denver copper large date, a 1982 D Denver copper small date, and a 1982 D Denver zinc small date. And that's before we even start talking about errors. This complexity is what makes 1982 pennies so fascinating to collectors, because it means you need to carefully examine every single 1982 penny you encounter to determine which variety you have, and more importantly, to check whether it might be one of the extremely rare error coins that can be worth massive amounts of money. The specific 1982 penny worth $1.5 million is an example of what's called a transitional error, where a coin was struck on the wrong composition planchet during the changeover period, creating a coin that technically shouldn't exist according to mint specifications, but does exist due to human or mechanical error during the production process. The most valuable version is the 1982 D small date penny struck on a copper planchet when it should have been struck on a zinc planchet or vice versa, a 1982 penny struck on a transitional composition that makes it either dramatically lighter or heavier than it should be, and this weight difference is the key to identifying these incredibly valuable errors. A normal copper 1982 penny should weigh approximately 3.11 grams, while a zinc 1982 penny should weigh approximately 2.5 grams. So if you find a 1982 small date penny that weighs significantly different from what it should based on when it was supposed to be minted, you might have just discovered a coin worth hundreds of thousands or even over $1 million. The story of how these errors occurred is actually quite logical when you understand the mechanics of mint production. During the transition period in 1982, both copper and zinc planchets were being used at the facilities, sometimes even on the same day or in the same production run, and occasionally planchets from one batch would get mixed in with planchets from another batch, or a die intended for one composition would accidentally strike a planchet of the other composition, creating these transitional errors that are now worth fortunes to collectors. What makes these coins especially valuable is their extreme rarity. While millions and millions of normal 1982 pennies were produced, only a tiny handful of these transitional errors are known to exist. Perhaps only 5 to 10 examples have been authenticated and certified by major grading services. And when you have that kind of rarity combined with the intense collector demand for error coins and 1982 varieties specifically, you get prices that soar into the $1 million range. The first time one of these 1982 transitional error pennies came to auction, the numismatic community went absolutely wild with excitement. Bidding wars erupted between wealthy collectors who had been searching for exactly this kind of coin for years, and when the hammer finally came down, the price had reached well over $1 million, establishing a new benchmark for what collectors were willing to pay for the right 1982 penny. Since that first major sale, additional examples have appeared on the market, each commanding similar 7-figure prices, and the legend of the $1 million 1982 penny has only grown stronger with time. Now, here's where things get really interesting for you. Because the transition happened throughout 1982 and because these errors can be difficult to spot unless you know what you're looking for, there's a very real possibility that valuable 1982 pennies are still out there in circulation, sitting in coin jars, hidden in old collections, or mixed in with pocket change, just waiting for someone knowledgeable enough to recognize them. This is why every single person watching this video should immediately go and check any 1982 pennies they have. Because this isn't some theoretical treasure hunt, This is a real opportunity to find real wealth if you know what to look for and if you're lucky enough to stumble across one of these rare errors. The process of checking your 1982 pennies is actually quite straightforward once you know the steps. First, you need to separate all your 1982 pennies into groups based on whether they have a mint mark and whether they have a large date or small date. And the way to tell large date from small date is to look at the number 2 in the date, because on large date pennies the 2 is level with the other numbers, while on small date pennies the 2 is noticeably smaller and sits slightly lower. Once you've sorted your pennies by these characteristics, the next step is to weigh them, and this is absolutely critical because weight is the primary way to identify transitional errors. You need a digital scale that measures to at least the 1/10 of a gram, preferably the 100th of a gram, and you need to weigh each penny carefully to see if it matches the expected weight for its type. If you find a 1982 D small date penny that weighs 3.11 grams, stop everything, because that coin should weigh 2.5 grams if it's zinc composition, and a copper weight of 3.11 grams means you potentially have a transitional error worth over $1 million. Similarly, if you find an early 1982 large date penny that weighs only 2.5 grams when it should weigh 3.11 grams, that's another huge red flag that you might have something extraordinarily valuable. The visual characteristics can also provide clues. Copper pennies tend to have a richer, deeper reddish-brown color, while zinc pennies often have a slightly different tone, though this can be subtle and difficult to judge without experience, which is why weight is such a more reliable indicator. The sound test is another trick that experienced collectors use. If you drop a copper penny and a zinc penny on a hard surface, they make distinctly different sounds, with copper having a more solid, ringing tone and zinc having a flatter, duller sound, though again, this is subjective and not as reliable as simply weighing the coin. If you do identify a 1982 penny that has the wrong weight for its date and mint mark combination, your next steps are crucial. Do not clean the coin. Do not handle it excessively with your bare hands because oils from your skin can damage the surface. Do not attempt any tests that might damage the coin, and instead, carefully place it in a protective coin holder or flip, and immediately contact a reputable coin grading service like PCGS or NGC to have it authenticated. These grading services employ expert numismatists who can examine the coin under magnification, conduct detailed metallurgical tests to confirm its composition, compare it to known examples of transitional errors, and ultimately certify whether your coin is genuine and assign it a grade that reflects its condition. And this authentication process is essential because a certified, authenticated transitional error 1982 penny is worth exponentially more than an uncertified coin that might be questioned by potential buyers. The history of 1982 penny collecting is filled with amazing discovery stories. There's the tale of a collector who found a 1982 D small date copper penny in a batch of pennies from a bank, a coin that was later authenticated and sold for over $1 million, transforming the finder's financial situation overnight. There's the story of an elderly woman who had been saving pennies in jars for decades and finally decided to have them checked by a coin dealer, only to discover that among the thousands of common pennies was a single 1982 transitional error worth enough to fund her retirement. These stories aren't urban legends or fairy tales. They're real events that have happened to real people, and they prove that extraordinary treasures really can be found by ordinary individuals who take the time to examine their coins carefully and who understand what to look for. The market for 1982 era pennies remains incredibly strong because of the combination of rarity, historical significance, and collector fascination with the copper-to-zinc transition period. Serious collectors of error coins and Lincoln cents specifically need to have examples of these transitional errors to complete their collections, and because so few examples exist, they're willing to pay premium prices that can reach into the millions of dollars for the right coin in the right condition. The condition of the coin, graded on a scale from 1 to 70 with 70 being perfect mint state, plays a significant role in determining value. A heavily circulated 1982 transitional error penny might only be worth hundreds of thousands of dollars, while a mint state example with sharp details, original luster, and minimal wear can command prices well over $1 million, and the absolute finest known examples can reach that $1.5 million mark or even higher depending on the auction environment and the bidding competitors. Understanding the broader context of Lincoln cent collecting also helps explain why 1982 pennies command such attention. The Lincoln cent series, first introduced in 1909, is one of the most widely collected coin series in American numismatics, with millions of collectors worldwide working to assemble complete sets, specialized variety collections, and examples of rare errors. And within this huge collecting community, the 1982 transitional errors represent some of the most challenging and prestigious coins to acquire, making them highly coveted trophies for advanced collectors. The technical aspects of how these errors occurred also fascinate collectors and add to the coin's mystique. Imagine the scene at the Denver or Philadelphia Mint in 1982. Workers rushing to meet production quotas, machines running continuously, planchets being fed into hoppers, and in the midst of all this industrial activity, a few copper planchets accidentally get mixed in with the new zinc planchets, or a few zinc planchets linger in a hopper that's supposed to contain only copper planchets, and the dies come down, strike these wrong composition planchets, and create coins that violate the mint specifications but which slip through quality control and enter circulation. These errors weren't intentional. They weren't created as collector pieces. They were genuine mistakes that occurred during a challenging transition period, and that authenticity and historical context adds enormously to their appeal and value. For anyone serious about finding valuable coins, the 1982 penny represents perhaps the best opportunity currently available in modern coinage. Unlike older rare coins that have mostly been picked over by generations of collectors, 1982 pennies are still widely available in circulation and in accumulated change. Billions were produced, and statistically speaking, there must be additional undiscovered transitional errors still out there waiting to be found. This means that every time you receive pennies in change, every time you go through old coin collections, every time you sort through penny rolls from the bank, you have a legitimate chance, however small, of discovering a coin worth over $1 million, and that possibility is what drives thousands of collectors to continue searching, weighing, and examining their 1982 pennies with unwavering dedication. The educational aspect of collecting 1982 pennies is also valuable. By learning to identify large date versus small date varieties, by understanding the difference between copper and zinc composition, by practicing weighing coins accurately, and by studying what transitional errors look like, you're developing numismatic knowledge and skills that will serve you well across all areas of coin collecting, and that might help you identify other valuable errors and varieties in different series. The 1982 penny teaches patience, attention to detail, systematic examination techniques, and the importance of verification and authentication, all crucial lessons for anyone interested in coins as a hobby or investment. The auction records for 1982 transitional error pennies make for fascinating reading. You can trace the progression of prices over the years, from early sales in the tens of thousands of dollars when these errors were first being recognized and authenticated, to more recent sales breaking the $1 million barrier as awareness spread and more wealthy collectors entered the market. And the trajectory suggests that prices will continue to appreciate as the coins become even more recognized as key rarities in the Lincoln cent series. Some of the most famous examples have been given nicknames by collectors. They've been featured in major numismatic publications. They've been displayed at prominent coin shows where thousands of attendees line up for a chance to see them in person. And they've achieved a celebrity status within the coin collecting community that ensures sustained demand and strong prices for years to come. The psychological aspect of searching for these coins is also worth considering. There's something deeply satisfying about the hunt, about the possibility that the next penny you examine could be the one, about the combination of knowledge, luck, and persistence required to make a great discovery. And successful coin hunters often describe the moment of finding a valuable error as one of the most exciting and memorable experiences of their lives. The 1982 penny hunt has created a community of enthusiasts who share information online, who post their finds on social media, who help each other learn to identify varieties, and who celebrate each other's successes. And this community aspect adds another dimension of enjoyment to the hobby beyond just the potential financial rewards. Looking at the technical specifications, a genuine 1982 D small date transitional error copper penny should weigh between 3.06 and 3.11 grams. It should have a diameter of 19.05 millimeters. It should show the characteristics of a small date obverse with the distinctive smaller, lower 2 in the date. It should have the D mint mark clearly visible beneath the date, and it should show the typical copper color and appearance of pre-1982 pennies, and any deviation from these specifications should be carefully investigated because it might indicate a different type of error or variety that could also be valuable. The reverse should show the Lincoln Memorial in sharp detail, with the columns clearly defined, the inscription E pluribus unum visible across the top, and United States of America and 1 cent appropriately placed. Though some striking weakness is common even on valuable errors and doesn't necessarily diminish value significantly as long as the coin is authentic. The metallurgical composition is perhaps the most scientifically interesting aspect of these transitional errors. The copper pennies are made of 95% copper and 5% zinc, giving them their characteristic weight, color, and electromagnetic properties, while the new zinc pennies are 97.5% zinc with a 2.5% copper plating, creating a coin that looks similar but has very different internal composition, and this difference can actually be detected using non-destructive testing methods like X-ray fluorescence that major grading services employ to confirm that a suspected transitional error really does have the wrong composition. These scientific tests remove any doubt about authenticity and provide ironclad proof that a coin is genuine, which is why professionally authenticated and graded transitional errors command such premium prices compared to raw, uncertified coins that might be questioned by skeptical buyers. The investment potential of 1982 transitional error pennies is substantial. Looking at the price history, these coins have appreciated significantly faster than most other forms of investment. They've proven resistant to economic downturns because serious collectors continue to buy regardless of broader market conditions. They have international appeal with collectors from around the world competing for the best examples. And the finite supply combined with growing awareness means that demand is likely to remain strong or even increase in the future. For someone lucky enough to find one of these coins, the decision of whether to sell immediately or hold for potential future appreciation is a personal one that depends on individual financial circumstances. But either way, discovering a $1 million penny is a life-changing event that can provide financial security, fund dreams and goals, and create a story that will be told and retold for generations. The final consideration for anyone searching for valuable 1982 pennies is to maintain realistic expectations while still remaining hopeful. Yes, these $1 million transitional errors exist. Yes, they're still being discovered occasionally. And yes, you could theoretically find one. But the odds are admittedly very long given that only a handful are known to exist among the billions of 1982 pennies produced. So the search should be approached as an enjoyable hobby and learning experience, rather than a guaranteed path to wealth, though of course if you do find one, your life will change in the most amazing way possible. The journey of examining your coins, learning about varieties and errors, connecting with other collectors, and developing expertise in numismatics is valuable in itself, and any monetary discoveries are wonderful bonuses on top of the inherent enjoyment of the hobby. So there you have it, The complete story of the 1982 1 cent worth $1.5 million. A coin that transformed from everyday pocket change into one of the most valuable pennies in existence. A coin that proves beyond any doubt that extraordinary wealth can hide in the most ordinary places. And a coin that you might still find if you take the time to carefully examine your 1982 pennies, weigh them accurately, and get suspicious coins professionally authenticated. The legacy of these transitional errors will continue to fascinate collectors for generations to come. The prices will likely continue to climb as the coins become even more famous and sought after, and somewhere out there, in someone's penny jar or old coin collection, there may be additional examples just waiting to be discovered and to change another lucky finder's life forever. So what are you waiting for? Go check those 1982 pennies right now. And who knows, you might just be the next person to discover $1 million treasure hiding in plain sight. And when you do, you'll have this video to thank for teaching you exactly what to look for and why these incredible coins are worth so much. Remember, fortune favors the prepared, the observant, and those willing to take the time to examine their coins carefully. And with the knowledge you've gained today about both the $7 million 1975 D penny and this $1.5 million 1982 penny, you're now equipped to potentially make discoveries that could transform your financial future. So get out there, start searching, and may your next penny be the one that changes everything.